Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Thank you for coming to the TUSD Governing Board meeting, April 23rd, 2024. May I get a roll call vote, Ms. Barboa?
Mr. Romero?
Here.
Dr. Ravi? Ms. Shaw?
Here.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Here.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Here. All right. 4 of us are here. Hopefully, or Dr. Shaw will be joining us later on this evening. I just want to say happy Passover to our Jewish community within TUSD family. Also, tomorrow, to remember that it's Administrative Professionals Day, so people like Ms. Barboa and Ms. Spiegel, please give them a round of applause for them, because we couldn't do the work of the Governing Board meeting without them. So please, a hand to our administrative professionals. And also, yesterday was Earth Day, but I think every day should be Earth Day, so I wanted to mention, I saw on Facebook a lot of our schools had a lot of exciting things going on yesterday, and projects and events, so it's a personal favorite of mine, so thank you for that. Okay, so we are moving on to land acknowledgement statement. And I am going to introduce Kiani Ross. Kiani is a 3rd grader at Tucson Unified Virtual Academy, or TUVA. Kiani loves nature, animals, hiking, camping, learning about ways she can help protect Mother Earth, and also likes sharing her knowledge with others. She has been invited to speak at summits and conferences that work towards creating a clean environment and water for everyone else, including speaking to members of Congress and senators. She aspires to continue to learn from her elders, mentors, community, and wants to become a scientist environmentalist when she grows up, so that ties in nicely with Earth Day. So Kiani, whenever you're ready to read the land acknowledgement statement, please do.
Thank you for the introduction
You're welcome.
and acknowledgement. I want to start by thanking my teacher, Miss Dinley. I also want to thank Miss Natalie Luna Rose and Miss Yolanda for emailing my daddy and inviting me. I am honored to be here, and thank you to everyone here. On behalf of the governing board of the Tucson Unified School District, I, Kiani Ross, acknowledge that the schools, buildings, and facilities of the Tucson Unified School District reside on the ancestral homeland of the Tohono O'odham Nation and the federally recognized tribal land of the Pasquayaqui tribe.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kiani. Thank you so much for coming. And thank to her teacher, Miss Steinley, who is sitting right there, for the encouragement to have Kiani speak. I hope you have a rest of the fun school year and look forward to going into 4th grade. Okay, bye-bye. I love it. Okay, Pledge of Allegiance. We have Betsy Ordaz, 4th grader from Cabot Elementary. Betsy, you're here? Okay. Betsy plays soccer. She is a very bright student and outgoing and very friendly. The staff are very happy to have Betsy at Cabot Elementary. Just want to make sure. So whenever you're ready, everybody can stand, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Betsy. And enjoy your the rest of the school year and summer and going into 5th grade.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you too.
Yay. My favorite part. We do have, I'd like to make it a quick announcement. We do have interpretation services. So If you need some this evening, she's back there in the green. Thank you. Okay. Next, we are off to agenda adjustments. Dr. Trujillo.
President Luna Rose, members of the governing board, I'd like to recommend item 9.1 go immediately following call to the audience. That item was postponed from our last meeting, and I think it's a good one to give, given that your vote a little bit later on in the agenda on the bond package, that you see the informational item first.
All right. Board members, any objections? No? Okay. Thank you. All right. Now we are on to awards and recognitions. Again, Dr. Trujillo.
Governing board, members of the public, all of you viewing us online. This, of course, our favorite part of TUSD board meetings, celebrating the performance arts and the great work that our students do. So tonight, we welcome some talented students from Morgan Maxwell's Music Technology Classroom, led by music teacher Ian Mast. It's actually the first of its kind in the district, working with Ableton Live 11 to create music, sound effects, and samples. During the year, students worked in sonic environment building, storytelling through sound, Foley art, music production, and audio engineering as their primary focus areas. These middle school classrooms featured two outstanding 8th grade students, Inez Hardesty and Sienna Reese, both of whom will be attending University High School next year. Inez and Sienna would often stay after school to work on their music projects to reach higher levels of production excellence with Ableton. We are grateful for the support of Principal Clarissa Nido for her support of this creative class that can inspire students to become music composers and producers.
Thank you very much for that. As was said in the introduction, my name is Ian Mast. I am a first-year teacher here with Fine Arts at Morgan Maxwell, and I'd just like to quickly say a thank you to Fine Arts and Joan Ashcraft for allowing me the opportunity to start this program. Along with that, here with me today is Inez Hardesty, as was said, and Sienna Reese, two of my 8th graders going on to University High School, both of which play in my band. Inez is a percussionist, and Sienna is also a saxophonist. So along with their music technology class, they perform in band every day. What I currently have set up for them is a quick timer demonstrating what we do in our class. So as I talk through it, they currently have 5 minutes to make me a quick little loop using a method we use in the class. What class is this? This is our music technology class where we use Ableton Live to make music production. Now, Ableton Live is a DAW software, which stands for Digital Audio Workstation, where we work with MIDI and audio sounds. MIDI are instruments inside of Ableton that they can use these keyboards to make sounds with. Currently, you're not hearing anything because it's just going into their headphones. Otherwise, we'd hear a bunch of beeps and boops while I'm talking. Aside from that, though, they use these quick little mini MIDI keyboards to produce music on their computers in our computer lab. They can use this on their computer lab computers specifically because they are built for it. Unfortunately, they cannot work on our Chromebooks just yet, but we do have alternatives for them if they'd like to use that. Now, our curriculum throughout the year also works with these little microphones called Blue Snowball microphones. These have them sampling audio effects. They work with vocals where they'll record lyrics. We also work with writing lyrics and things like that for their own songs. If I were to flick the table or flick a pencil or snap in front of the microphone, you can grab that sound and put it in Ableton, or you can do something that we do in our class as well called granular synthesis, where we take that grain of the sound and we can oscillate it, meaning it goes a bunch of times in a row, da, 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 and it goes so fast that it creates a pitch, creating synthesis, which is what a synthesizer, what a piano is, and that's what they work on. So in this, what they're currently doing, they're working with the ground up method, which uses synthesizers in Ableton. every MIDI instrument is a synthesizer trying to make up a sound for what the instrument was or is or will be. They are currently working with drums, bass, guitar, and piano to make a modern ensemble for a very simple pop song that'll be about 8 bars or so. Typically in my class, they will have 3 of these that they make in order to make a full song. They make 3, 4 or so, and then they put them together using transitions to have intro, verse, chorus, things like that to make sure they all work together. Currently, we have done 2 in-class original songs, and they're about to use their second original song to make music videos in the classroom. Now, after they're done with this in about 2 minutes and 2 seconds, we will be showing one of our students' projects, Inez's, and they're making a music video based around space and traveling in it with their song and green screen and CapCut and things like that, because this isn't just an Ableton class. It is a music technology class where we use different software to incorporate music into different aspects of media. So for instance, CapCut is a video editing software that we use in the class that we have been using prior in another unit about Foley sound design, which is adding sound effects to movies, TV, things like that. Now, I'm gonna focus a bit more on what they're doing right now. As you can see, there's a lot of little dots that almost look like an Excel spreadsheet up there. So, this isn't Microsoft Excel. They're currently looking at a piano roll where you can see the notes on the left, and they're making it go over time on the right. Currently, we're looking at a drum kit where you can see all of the different instruments on the left, and then on the right, they're going and making a quick, simple drum beat that currently looks like kick, hat, kick, snare, and then kick, hat, kick, snare. At least that's what I'm seeing right now. They have been practicing doing this all year. Each of my students is able to make a song in about a week total if I give them that much time to work on it. So I'm very proud of how far they've come with all of this. And I believe, you guys done already? Almost. They finished faster. We still have 30 more seconds. All right. Well, in the meantime, I'd like to mention that after we present this, I'd like to invite anyone interested at all to come up and mess with any of the keyboards as well if they'd like to make sounds after we listen to this and then the presentation afterwards. But I believe we're ready to listen. So now we're going to switch it over and hope it doesn't crash. Generic 4K. Oh no. Sometimes this happens with HDMI, things like that, but it's just par for the course. Bear with me. It's going great. How's yours? All right, there we go. All right, so for 5 minutes, give it up for Inez and Sienna. We'll go ahead and open up their other project and have a listen to that as well. This was titled Soar by Inez, if you'd like to. as mentioned earlier, this will be a part of a fun little space music video that we will have seen later on. Now, if anyone would like to come up and mess with any of the MIDI keyboards, they are live and able to be played if anyone would like to mess with them or see them at all. No one? Yeah. Come on up. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, just doing some little, like, flutters there, here, there. Oh, this one got unplugged. That'll do it, too. Yeah, they work with these to record live or even just input them after the fact just to see where the notes are. Yeah, go for it. A little bit of delay because of the speakers. Yeah. This microphone, yeah. So if it's plugged in, which it currently isn't, but these microphones. Oh, is it just being held down? Okay. No, it's okay. I got it. But yeah, so the microphones, when they're plugged in, they go straight into the computer, which then you just have to record in the set. And this is time over all of the instruments and things like that. So when you have the recordings in there, you can actually see some of the audio files that Inez used, like this riser sound right here. You can go in and see the exact waveform of it all and even zoom in even closer if you want to just grab individual strands of it. Wow. Yeah. Wow. So very cool stuff with all of it, and it's a very powerful software to use as well. This is 7th and 8th grade. Yeah. Yeah, they did great. Good job. One more round of applause for Inez and Sienna. Thank you guys very much. Yeah.
Absolutely impressive stuff with our music technology classroom. So I want to thank the Morgan Maxwell community for really supporting these wonderful young artists. Moving on, last week I had the opportunity of attending our Bond Oversight Committee, and they have gotten right to work. I want to thank also our governing board designated liaison board member Ekstrom, also there. In their first two committee meetings, they have already recommended a comprehensive package of first wave bond projects that you'll see a little bit later on tonight. Had an opportunity to really see our team in action, and I want to thank our wonderful team, our bond manager, Dr. Charlotte Carter, and then her team, Damon Ballesteros, Greg Meyer, Diana Kierfoot, and of course, Ricky Hernandez. I was very, very impressed with the team's presentation of materials, the level of detail that they provided to the Bond Oversight Committee, and their responsiveness to all of the requests for information. So, and also I want to thank, goes without saying, all of those choosing to serve on the Bond Oversight Committee. Near 100% attendance, and we're only 2 meetings in. So, and they've done a really, really wonderful job. Last Friday, I had an opportunity to shoot out to Spectrum Mall and the Skechers store there. Oh, it looks like I'm skipping over our exceptional education staff virtual forum. So we had an exceptional education staff virtual forum last week where we focused on listening to our ex-ed staff members. Had about 80 participants, combination of parapros, classroom teachers, and those serving in a variety of roles inside of the ex-ed service provider community. A lot of discussions around compensation, a lot of discussions around working conditions, placement, hiring and selection procedures as well. So we're very, very excited to be hosting what I hope becomes a quarterly event where we can be more in touch with some of the major, looks like I'm losing audio in and out. So we can be more in touch with the major concerns and recommendations of our ex-ed staff members. Okay. And of course, Friday morning, I had the opportunity to go to Spectrum Mall There was a shoe giveaway for our students facilitated by the Educational Enrichment Foundation. And I want to thank Skechers and their leadership and their manager and their store leadership for hosting our students from both Cavett and Miller. Students were treated to a new pair of shoes, and we had a wonderful team of volunteers out there receiving the kids as they came off the buses and helping them shop for shoes. So it was an absolute wonderful. I want to thank the donors, Sonia and Herb McReynolds, very, very generously donating their time, their financial support for this wonderful opportunity, and for EEF for getting together all of the volunteers. I know the kindergartner that was assigned to me shopping for his shoes, he was so excited with his new shoes, he decided to wear them out of the store. And, wasn't necessarily concerned about his old pair of shoes, which were just kind of left laying around, but I was able to get them for him and make sure that they were in the bag and they went home to his parents. A wonderful event. I'm going to go ahead and switch mics here. At our Family Resource Center, I want to express appreciation for our staff as our Family Resource Center out there at the Southwest Family Resource Center. They hosted a 50s-inspired spring sock hop. This engaging event served as a platform to connect families with a diverse array of resources offered by Tucson Unified District departments and our valued community partners. The attendees enjoyed a variety of activities and indulged in delicious snacks, including the staple beverage of the era, root beer floats. The atmosphere was vibrant, and the event proved to be a fantastic opportunity for networking and for learning. Overall, it was an absolutely wonderful celebration. And lastly, let's talk about Earth Day at Tully. Tully Elementary Magnet School celebrated Earth Day with gusto, engaging students and families in a range of activities that highlighted the importance of environmental stewardship, from hands-on science garden explanations to crafting eco-friendly masterpieces. Our students showcased their enthusiasm and creativity in promoting sustainability. Way to go, Tully Tigers. A fun fact about Earth Day: the date for Earth Day was largely dictated by the schedules of college students. April 22nd is nestled between spring break and final exams, when the weather is mild enough to allow for people to be outside. So our thanks again, Tully, for one of the more creative Earth Day observances in the district. President Luna Rose, members of the governing board, that concludes my report.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. And just wanted to thank the gang here from Morgan Maxwell before you guys walk out. It was like listening like Depeche Mode or DJ Shadow or something like that. So, yeah. I would love to come, and I recently came to Morgan Maxwell, and you happened not to be there that day, but I saw all your equipment. So it's fantastic what you're doing. So thank you for joining us this evening.
Of course, thank you so much for having us.
Take care. All right. Now we are on to board member activity reports. Not everybody jump at once, so whoever would like to go first. Ms. Romero? Okay.
I'll go first. Let's see. So we had a few school visits. Sam Hughes with the interim principal, Richard Lundstrom. While Principal Kat Bolowski is out on maternity leave, also wanted to congratulate Principal Kat on her new twins. So that's why she's out. Visit at Robert Snaler with Principal Bernadette Rotzenhausler and Interim Assistant Principal Amanda Matroni. Sorry if I messed up your name. Also got the chance to visit again at Rincon and University High, both of Principals Alyssa Welch and Principal Beto Hornell. And then also got to visit Mary Meredith with Principal Judy Mitchell. Had actually one of my barbecue classes, Tucson Grill Masters, I had some Mansfield 8th grade students attend a Tucson Grill Masters class. So the Mansfield twins are the latest graduates of Smoking 101. So Principal Luke, you can have them show you off their skills with a special principal barbecue lunch. attended the Pima County Board members meeting on April 15th, and then I did a couple radio shows, Wake Up Tucson, and then Jump in Tucson with Ed Ackerley, and alongside with Felicia Tagabin Gaskin with Native SOAR. I was not familiar with this organization, and that's Student Outreach, Access, and Resiliency. It's an organization assisting with mentorship of our Native American community between the University of Arizona and within TUSD at Tucson High Magnet School, and also in that interview in hopes to expand to other high schools and maybe other middle schools and grade schools in the Native community. And that was my report.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Romero. Ms. Ekstrom.
Thank you. I was able to attend the TUSD All-City Track Meet for 3rd through 5th grade. Schools that participated were Banks, Bonias, Booth-Fickett, Borman, Carrillo, Collier, Drachman, Dunham, Ford, Fruchtendler, Gale, Grijalva, Henry, Howell, Kelland, Lineweaver, Monzo, Ochoa, Robbins, Roscrooge, Sam Hughes, Sewell, Soling, Tom, Wheeler, and Whitmore. A special shout out to a certain 3rd grader who won the 100 meters. Very proud mom over here. And then Fruchtendler won the overall meet, and Lineweaver came in 2nd, and the Lineweaver girls won for their age. So that was really great to see. It was very cold, so thank you to Saguaro and of course Mr. Dale Lopez for all that he does for sports in our district. And then I was able to go out to Warren Elementary to visit their preschool. I was there with the PEEP staff from Pima County, Supervisor Adelita Grijalva, and our TUSD preschool staff. That preschool is just booming. They are also able to do OMA, which was really great. The OMA teacher goes into their classroom and they're able to participate and do OMA, and then there are other things throughout the day. And that's an all-day preschool funded through PEEPS in Pima County. So thank you to Warren and everybody who was there that day. And then this past Saturday, I was out at Pister Middle School for their beautification day. Thank you to Principal Gunnels and Vice Principals Casillas and Daniel, and as well as County Attorney Laura Conover, who was there. We were able to paint walls, and then trash receptacles and picnic benches were also painted that day. There was some great participation from some students there as well. So that was a great Saturday morning. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Ekstrom. Ms. Shaw, go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So a few weeks ago, I went over to Santa Rita High School to drop off some of this opportunity for youth, transportation art by youth, that the Arts Foundation is running where I currently work. I wasn't able to speak to any classes, unfortunately, because it was testing day, but I just dropped off the flyers. And I did the same thing at Palo Verde and was able to speak with 3 art classes and got a tour of the school as well as the Family Resource Center. I also went over to Dodge for 6th grade orientation. My daughter's moving on to Dodge next school year, so very nervous, as was she. And so, but I think the school staff there will do a great job in welcoming all of the new students. I also met with the Youth Climate Council. I think I'm forgetting some of the parts of their name, but it's that group of youth that came at the last board meeting and collaborated on a climate action policy for our district. Let's see, I was also at Tucson High School last weekend. My uncle Ron was inducted into the Tucson High School Hall of Fame for his work in 65 and 66 on their football team. They were undefeated champions, and he got a scholarship from all of his hard work there. So that was fabulous. Let's see. I went to New Orleans for the National School Board Association conference. That was pretty interesting, and some of you may be asking, Sadie, didn't you vote no against professional development a while back? And I did, but I figured if you can't beat them, join them. So I went there, and there's some cool things happening around the country from other school districts. And so some of the sessions that I participated in was learning about innovations in career and technical education, school safety, mental health support, exceptional education, and also like electrification of bus fleets. So, I learned some things. It was interesting, but I don't know if I'll go back again because I really don't like to travel. Let's see. My daughter flew an airplane this weekend with Wright Flight. So I was there at Ryan Airfield. If you don't know, Wright Flight is like a program where students get to learn about airplane history, and they have to pass like a series of tests to qualify. And it really teaches them study skills. Like, I don't think my daughter studied this hard ever for something so specific, because she was really driven for that incentive of flying a glider plane. And so, wow. I was afraid this weekend, but she made it. She landed, and yeah, I'm very proud of her for all that she accomplished, and all the other students that were there. Congratulations. Let's see. Also participated in the first Alternative Education Advisory Committee meeting, and that was fabulous. We elected a chair of that committee, and everyone's really interested in the work, so I'm excited to see where that committee will take us. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Okay, and then last but not least, since we last did board reports, I attended the Teacher Development Academy dinner. And I do believe Dr. Trujillo touched upon it last board meeting, but I didn't have a chance to speak. It was a nice evening of teachers, first-year teachers, and those who want to become teachers give their presentations in what's going on in their classroom. And they were all very nervous because they're all first year or wanting to become teachers. And the great potential that we have coming into the pipeline into this district. So I was excited to come, and I hope I can be, this was the first cohort, so I hope to be invited again for next time. I also visited Pueblo High School and the classroom of Mr. Nathan Adams, CTE teacher. He teaches computer science. I received an email from one of his students, one of his seniors, Jose Nagore, who was concerned with some of the programs that the district has not been able to, at the time, had to cut back on, especially considering the hack that we had. And so they were very concerned, and he was very thoughtful. Even though he's getting ready to graduate and move on to the U of A, he wanted to see these programs continue for his classmates and the kids that are coming behind him. I was very impressed with him and his group, Andres, Adrian, Christian. I spent about an hour and a half in the classroom. They showed me what they were doing. I wanted to thank Mr. Ramada. We're trying to work with Pueblo and the CTE program to keep some of these programs that aren't security risks in the classroom, because it will really further the education of these students. So I was excited to go there. So again, thank you, Mr. Adams, and Jose especially, for one of the, he's just an example of one of the many wonderful students that we have in our district. And again, thank you to Mr. Rothenhauser and Ms. Martinez, assistant principal, for allowing me to roam around campus that day. And for 5 seconds, well, more than 5 seconds, for 15 seconds, I got confused with a student. So that was kind of fun. And then they realized I was not, but I found it amusing. So thank you again to the Pueblo community for having me that day. I also visited Dunham, Ford, Gridley last week. Thank Principal Kathy Chandler at Dunham. Diana Johnson, who is retiring at Ford, and Rosana Ortiz Montoya over at Gridley, for their hospitality, showing me their schools, their distinct communities, and some wonderful things that are going on in our East Side schools. So if you had not a chance to go and take a look at these schools, I would highly encourage you to do so. They're nice, small communities, and it's just a testament to what the work that our teachers and our staff are doing at those places, just like across all our schools across the district. I want to thank Holly Lehman-Hamill, Assistant Superintendent for the Pantano region, for accompanying me that day. And lastly, last night I attended the ASBA's first annual school board presidents meeting. They have not done this before, and I went on behalf of obviously our board, and they want to do these quarterly, and all the board presidents get together and talk about what's going on in their district, what they would like to see come out of the relationship between ASBA and their particular district. So it was a good session. It was about an hour. It was virtual, so everybody could attend from across the state, of course, and then we broke out into the Pima room, and it was nice to get to know some of those folks. So that's my report for this evening. All right, thank you. So now we are moving to call to the audience, and I will turn that over to Ms. Ekstrom.
Thank you. Public participation at board meetings. Members of the public may speak during call to the audience. The governing board clerk shall be responsible for recognizing speakers and for maintaining order where it may be appropriate. Those who speak in person or want to have their comments read shall email or call the board office or complete a request to address the board form before the meeting. Speakers who have not completed a request form are not permitted to address the board. The speaker must state their full name and topic prior to addressing the board. Speakers are encouraged to be brief with a maximum of 3 minutes. While more than one speaker may speak together in time allowed, speakers are reminded that they are not allowed to speak more than once, and they may not transfer or delegate their time to others. If there are documents for the board, please give them to the board office staff, and they will ensure that each board member receives a copy. Those attending the meeting and or speaking before the board shall observe rules of good conduct. Speakers shall also refrain from inappropriate or slanderous remarks. And because TUSD serves students from preschool through high school, speakers should be aware there may be children present and listening. At the end of the call to the audience, the governing board president will ask if any board member wishes to respond to a criticism, wish to ask staff to review a matter, or wish to ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. No more than 2 members may address each topic. Contents of this card are public information. And first we have Dolores De Vera.
Good evening. I'm here to oppose hiring any substitute teachers through an outsourcing company. Dr. Trujillo, several years ago you tweeted that public education is not for sale. But to me, when you work with these outsourcers, you are selling public education to private business. These organizations do not know any secret tricks to recruiting. What makes it attractive to work for them is one thing. They offer significantly higher pay than if you work directly through TUSD. Maxim is advertising $45 to $48 per hour for special education teachers. And it's my understanding that subs get that same amount. But then in addition to that pay, I'm all for higher pay for us, right? But in addition to that pay, you guys pay a really high administrative fee to the outsourcing company. We subs realize that there are certain jobs that are not just hard to fill, they're super hard to fill, like a self-contained ex-ed class for emotionally disturbed or medically fragile students. Sure, not many want to take those jobs, yet we do have subs who take these very difficult jobs. And sometimes they end up working right next to the Maxim employee who is earning way more. So here is my suggestion. Before you allow Maxim or any third-party agency to hire a substitute at really high wages and then pay that huge administrative fee, why don't you send an email to the entire substitute teacher pool and specifically to those who are already taking these very difficult jobs, and offer them the same rate that they are going to get through Maxim. You're paying Maxim to pay them these high rates. That would save the taxpayers that administrative fee. And I have heard of our TUSD subs. They just go over to Maxim and apply. I don't understand why you're paying that fee. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Lauren McElroy.
Hi, members of the board. My name is Lauren McElroy Herrera. I'm here to talk to you about public safety. I'm the person who was here on March 26th when you were discussing whether or not to put a cell phone tower on Collier Elementary, and I asked the audience if anyone was here from Collier Elementary, and there was one person who raised her hand. Then I later met her, and she said her child used to go there about 7 years ago, and she doesn't live in that area anymore. So really, there was nobody from here. So I, with a friend of mine who has a little 5-year-old, we looked up Collier and we went to the movie night, and I wanted to meet some parents and find out if they had been told in the intervening time, because this was April 5th. And actually, I wanted to know if they had been notified before the item was on your agenda. And I only did talk to one parent, and she told me she had just learned about it the night before. So that was April 4th. So, the week after you had it on the agenda. Then she actually mentioned that there was going to be a meeting on April 16th. So I went to that meeting, and actually before that, I went around and talked to some of the people in the neighborhood, and they had not known anything about the possibility of a cell tower in their neighborhood, and they were actually shocked. And so they came to this meeting, and in fact, there were no parents at the meeting. The principal told us that they had put it in those little take-home flyers, and what she had done to try to tell parents. But I really beg you to do a public forum about this issue because, as you said, every day should be Earth Day. I firmly believe that. Gaia is like the system of our entire planet, and we humans are part of that. And cell phone tower radiation is a new kind of pollution that our children need to be protected from. I believe that the parents need informed consent. And in order to, actually I did go on Friday to see if I could talk to parents when they were picking up their children. I talked to 5 parents and 4 of them did not know anything about this. So maybe the idea of the robocalls to tell parents about this issue, and also please, please, please have a public forum where we can have experts. We're fortunate to have a lot of local experts about this, and have Verizon tell us about the benefits so that parents will know the pluses and minuses and really be able to give informed consent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next is Pilar Reese.
My name is Pilar Costa Ruiz, and so first, I like that you said, Ms. Luna Rose, that you went to a dinner with first-year teachers and those who want to be teachers, and you said there's like a whole bunch of people that want to be teachers. Like we have this great resource pool, is what I understood you to say. Yet, 7.4, we're trying to hire some other company to hire people to work in TUSD. I know that many of you are supporters of organized labor, and you can deny that it's outsourcing, but going outside of your internal organization to hire people is outsourcing. You could, I'd like to see, it would be great if TUSD could do advertising in many different ways. I loved Ms. De Vera's idea of emailing subs. It should be all over Facebook, should be all over the website, even though nobody really goes there. But there's lots of ways that you guys could be trying to get these positions filled without outsourcing, because I'm pretty sure the labor organizations are paying attention. Also, cell phone towers. I know that your favorite word is transparency, but again, this hasn't been a transparent issue. It wasn't on the website. I didn't see it on Facebook. I don't know if robocalls went out, but I venture they didn't. You know, transparency should be something you're striving for. Like, there's not enough public notification. There's not too much. There's not too much transparency. So maybe the students' parents, the parents of the students who are there currently may have got a little tiny flyer that their kid may or may not have brought home. But what about the parents who are going to be sending their students there 5 years from now? What about the parents who are going to send their students there in 2 years from now? What about the neighbors who live in that neighborhood? Maybe they would like to know how that's going to affect their property taxes, or their property values, excuse me. I mean, I don't understand why TUSD is afraid to be transparent, fully transparent. Like, let the community know. Do a PSA. Do a little segment on the news. Do something. Get on the radio stations and announce that it's happening. So hopefully you can get some teachers from the dinner you went to fill the positions for the special ed, because the money you're going to pay that organization, whoever the third party is, it sure would be better if you paid that money to inside the organization. Labor doesn't appreciate outsourcing things.
Thank you. Next is Peter Norquist.
All right. Good evening, members of the governing board, and thank you for the regular opportunity for us to speak. I am also here to speak about the Verizon Tower at Collier Elementary. So I understand that there have been some people who have addressed you previously about their concerns with things like privacy, health, property values, and I could collect information about that, but what I'd rather talk about is more anecdotal. And it's a personal story, but I think it's relevant to the issue and the decision about whether to have the tower. So you haven't seen me for a while because I was in Taiwan visiting my in-laws for a few weeks. And I made it back just in time to go to the Collier meeting last week to listen to what the conversation was, what the dialogue was. And there were a couple of things that I was concerned about. One is that there did not seem to be any parents there with active students from the school. There were some community members, but no parents. And I mentioned that because it has been raised as a concern that it seems that people are not being notified about this. So I would like to also state my interest in there being a public forum. But more to the point, my anecdote is that during the time I was in Taiwan, I was there 3 weeks, and I had the opportunity to travel during that time with my in-laws throughout the island. So I was living in the north part, but we traveled to the south part, Tainan, and then back through the central part, Taichung, and then back to the Taipei area, which is the north. And if you're at all familiar with Taiwan, you'll know that their population density is massive compared to ours. And they also love technology. So wherever I went, train stations, bookstores, coffee places, everyone had their faces in their phones. So we know that people use technology there. At the Collier meeting, the Verizon representative, Linda, basically made the argument that we need a tower at Collier because there's going to be a gap there. And people need to be able to use their apps and technology. There may even be a problem with emergency services. When I was in Taiwan, the one thing I was shocked to find, and I wasn't expecting this, was there was no 5G signal at all throughout the entire island, which I traveled throughout. And we would have been able to detect it, but it was 4G at most. So if Taiwan, with their massive population and their massive technology use, can get by using 3G and 4G just fine, why can't we? I'm wondering what is so deficient about our use of technology that we can't keep up with them and avoid putting a tower somewhere where there are vulnerable students.
Your time has expired. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have an email from Guadalupe Henninger. Good evening. My name is Guadalupe Henninger. I would like to speak about item 7.5 bond program projects. When you are planning on priority, it is important to include in your projects clean air systems and clean water systems. It is important for the well-being of teachers, students, and all in TUSD. This year, we are having primary election and general elections. If you have sacred cows, skeletons in your closet, or plan to become rich when you are in office, please do a favor to your country and do not run for office. But if you have ethics, integrity, wisdom, and know how government works and want to protect people's constitutional rights, go ahead. Special interest groups, some elected officials, and some foreign entities have created the weaponization of social media to spread lies, hate, and division. This is not normal, and we should not let this be the new normal. Sincerely, Guadalupe Henninger. And that concludes our call to the audience.
Thank you, Ms. Ekstrom. Board members, any response? Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who spoke tonight. Thanks to Ms. DeVetta for your suggestions about item 7.4. I think they're right on. Miss Laura, I believe your name is. Sorry if I missed that. And then Mr. Norquist, thank you for your comment on the cell phone towers, and I'd like to call for a public forum again, and also add a presentation on all of our cell phone towers across the district. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Romero.
Again, thank you. I did attend the meeting at Collier on the 16th. Sat in the back of the room, and I learned a lot from Bryant, as well as a lot of people that were in the room that were giving out information, and all different, like was mentioned, there were no parents there, but there were experts in different areas that live in that area that are invested in their community. And again, the passion and the information that was given made it obvious to me that if there is ever consideration of a cell phone tower at any school, I think we need to do our due diligence with those schools, like Ms. Shaw had mentioned, to do some type of town hall. And like Ms. Lauren had mentioned, get all sides of the story. We'll invite, the experts. We invite Verizon. We have everybody come together so that we do have, like I said, informed consent. Like I said, I learned a lot from that meeting. I had to leave right as it ended, but I think it actually went longer than it was supposed to. But again, thank you for all those that came out to that meeting.
Any other comment? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we are moving on to, I do believe, 9.1. Spring 2024 TUSD bond information update, something I'm very looking forward to. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Luna Rose, members of the governing board. This is our belated introduction to what the Bond Oversight Committee, what they've been able to accomplish so far and where we're at with project planning. Wanted to do this first, obviously, because you have a pretty big vote coming up a little bit later. And I wanted to take this opportunity to personally welcome publicly Dr. Charlotte Carter, who you'll hear from in a moment, our new bond manager, recent Tucson transplant from the great city of Oklahoma City, right? So joining us from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we're looking forward to hearing from her as well. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hernandez, who will lead us off.
Good evening, board members. So as Dr. Trujillo mentioned, I just have a quick just update on where we are with the bond. You'll hear from Dr. Carter and the rest of the team later this evening on the work that the Bond Oversight Committee did to approve some projects. So I'll go over the bond issuance, the sale, the district bond ratings. I do want to bring some stuff to your attention. Just highlight the Bond Oversight Committee and talk about the program staffing, and then just some next steps. Can we get the clock out of the... Thank you. So the first bond issuance was completed actually last board meeting, April 9th. All bonds were underwritten by RBC and Piper Sandler. At the time that we came to you with the proposal in February, we were estimating an interest rate of 5%. It came out as an all-in rate at 3.86%. So that is what we will be paying in interest. Our first issuance was $150 million. Proceeds of $149 million were deposited today at the county treasurer. So the $149 million that were sold on April 9th were received today by Pima County Treasurer. And we will have our first debt service payment on January 1 of 2025. So there it goes. So we did receive some new bond ratings. You've seen these before, you've seen bond ratings in the past that I've shown you. These are new bond ratings related specifically to these two bond issues. So Fitch Rating gave this bond an A. And with an outlook, and gave the district an outlook of positive. They essentially determined that this is one of the largest bond sales that they've seen in the state of Arizona in a long time. So especially from TUSD, where we've actually been able to build some stability in our financials. And that actually led Fitch in particular to provide us an A rating with a positive outlook. They're looking at some stability. They're looking to make sure that, that we're following the right course. Now, they did provide us some what they call rating sensitivity. So they want management and the board to be aware of what could cause the rating to be upgraded even further or downgraded from where we are. So one of the things is maintaining or improving our reserves, our contingency funds that we currently maintain, wanting to make sure that they're at 10 to 15% of operating expenditures, making sure that we focus on the fact that our revenue is near or above inflation. Unfortunately, a lot of that revenue we cannot control, right? That is funding that comes from the state legislature. It is at 2% or less. Essentially, what we're getting year over year in the inflation cost. So revenue growth may not always actually factor in inflation. Now, there are some downgrade sensitivities that we need to be aware of. Structural imbalances or diminished reserves if we continue to dive into contingencies to fund day-to-day operations. Those will actually be reviewed. They do provide reviews on our ratings year over year. And so we want to make sure that we don't diminish our reserves to below 10% of our operating expenditures. And any loss of expenditure flexibility because we continue to lose students or because we have higher carrying costs. And higher carrying costs just means that we are paying more per student to manage the district. And it's not just administration. This is overhead as it relates to non-instructional programming. So, if we continue to increase those carrying costs, that is something that will be reflected in a potential rating. Moody's Investor Service gave us a AA3 with a stable outlook. This is a very, very strong rating on our behalf, similar to Fitch. Want to make sure that we sustain our reserves at 25%. We want to make sure that we're improving our enrollment trends. And for me, improvement means stability, right? 0 is pretty much okay in my book. A loss is really where we don't want to head. Any erosion of reserves that fall below 10% of revenue. So again, a huge focus from both rating agencies on our operating reserves and how much we're diving into those to try to do daily expenditures or ongoing expenses and any future enrollment declines. We spent a lot of time, Dr. Trujillo spent a lot of time in particular when we sat down with Fitch and with Moody's, talking to them about our strategies behind enrollment in particular and a lot of the work that's already being done, particularly in the marketing environment, to try to manage these enrollment declines and try to ensure that we stave off any continued decrease in our enrollment. So the Bond Oversight Committee met, they had their first meeting on the 28th of last month. They met again last week on the 17th. They will be meeting every third Thursday of every month. They are currently working on a charter that they hope to bring to you soon. The bond did select the Bond Oversight Committee selected leadership. Erica Miranda Carter, a parent in the Tucson Unified School District, is the chair. Sophia Blue, another parent, is the vice chair, and Mrs. Ekstrom is your board liaison. So we wanted to make sure that these are the 5 major roles of the committee. This is what they understand are their responsibilities based on what you'd like them to do, the transparency behind the work, and making sure that our bond program office is working with them to provide them the information they need on the work and the projects that we're going to roll out over the course of the next 10 years. So bond program staffing. So as Dr. Trujillo mentioned, and I'll have her come up here with me briefly, but we did hire Dr. Charlotte Carter. She is our newly minted bond manager. She will be the primary lead for TUSD's bond program. She came to us from Tulsa Public Schools, where she worked for over 10 years. You can see it: strategic deployment, business services, IT project manager. She executed 2 very large bond programs in the Tulsa Public School system, one over $400 million. We won't hold against the fact that she went to the University of Oklahoma, but she is a certified project management professional. So as you can see, this is the staffing that we're looking for right now. We are currently in the process of hiring an admin assistant, a procurement agent, and a budget analyst. It's kind of a small mini finance department that will be within the bond program office to only deal with the financials and the purchasing side of the bond. There will be a facilities role that is kind of dotted line into this, that is going to be the construction manager. This is going to be the quality control person of all of the projects. Do you want to come up here real quick? So I'm just going to let Dr. Carter introduce herself to you.
Good evening, Superintendent, Board President, members of the board, General Counsel, and staff. My name is Dr. Charlotte Carter. It is an honor and privilege to be here. I have officially moved. I have been on staff for 5 weeks. It's been an extraordinary ride already. The team is fantastic. We have accomplished a lot in 5 weeks. I am excited to contribute to the successful implementation of this bond. I am committed to serve. I am a servant leader. And so I want to make sure there's transparency, there's accountability, there's communication, and there's collaboration. So I look forward to it. I feel like my skill sets, what I've done and experienced at Tulsa Public is going to be tremendous, but also what I'm going to learn and how we're going to be able to be successful right here in Tucson. So super excited, ready to go, and we have money. So now it's time to put our hand on the plow and move forward.
Thank you. So just next steps, we're looking at completing the hiring of our bond office staff. All those positions are currently posted and available, and so we hope to have those filled in over the next several weeks. Implementation of the initial wave of projects that have now been reviewed by the Bond Oversight Committee, and Dr. Carter will present to you later this evening to seek your approval to move these forward. The Bond Oversight Committee, again, will finalize their committee charter for board approval, hopefully next month when they meet again. We expect some of these initial bond projects to begin as early as next month. And we are currently working and finalizing the development of an interactive bond project dashboard that will allow the community to engage directly with where the projects are, what phases they're in, where they're taking place, what is taking place. And so we want to make sure that we provide that ongoing transparency to the community. And there's always going to be more information on our bond website, and that development of that website, bond2023.tusd1.org. So with that, any questions?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Board members, questions? Ms. Shaw.
Thank you for the presentation. Just a quick question. What's wrong with the University of Oklahoma?
Technically, we're rivals right now until they leave to the SEC.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just, I'm an alumnus of the U of A, and I just, I got to call it out when I see it.
I see. Okay.
We've already been given a brief in the back. We've let her know what football season is going to be like around here.
Do you want to respond to that?
I want to, but he's my boss.
Okay. Noted. Thank you.
I had a question, Mr.
Yes.
Hernandez. So if I'm looking at the new bond ratings, the Fitch ratings, the Moody's, for those who maybe don't quite understand, it's sort of like a credit company like Experian and TransUnion.
Yes, those are the credit agencies for businesses and corporations and governments. And essentially, the higher the rating and the better the outlook, the lower the interest rate, we become less riskier of an investment because all of these bonds are purchased by investors all over the country. And so we want to make sure that we give them the security that we're on solid footing. And those rating agencies help us do that to make sure that they provide kind of an independent review of that. And so we want to make sure that that we stick to those.
Okay,
Yeah.
because those are good grades. I like A's.
Those are very good grades. I mean, triple capital A on Moody's is as high as you can get. To be a AA3, I mean, is essentially, you know, right. I think you're like 2 levels below the top tier. So we've done a really good job to earn those grades and to earn the outlook of being both stable and positive. Because like I mentioned to you last fall, it was only about 2 or 3 years ago that we were in negative territory. So it would have been a much different picture had we had that type of rating stick around today. So it's definitely a testament to the work that this board and this administration have done.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Romero?
On the next steps, complete development of interactive bond project dashboard, how frequently do we have that this is going to be updated? Do we have someone that's going to be from our bond office that will be in charge of that?
I'll have Dr. Carter address that to you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Good question. What we are really aiming to do is look at various software that can update it, because the data is only going to be as good as it's being entered and updated on a regular basis. So right now we're in the process of figuring out how we're going to get that data on the dashboard. Ideally, I would love for, as we are implementing the schedules, as we're updating the schedules and updating the action items, that is updating that particular dashboard. So I really would love for it to be at least once a day, but we're right now going through the process to make sure that there's some type of integration. So that's high on my list, because that's going to help with the transparency to make sure the data is updated. So that's super, super important. But it's more to come. Also, it kind of depends on the information we have and how often. Some of the information at the beginning of the dashboard is more stagnant, like, you know, it's $480 million. That doesn't change. That's the bond. But then there's other things. As we move through projects, we have the phases. So the preliminary phase, the planning, the actual execution. So those, as we're doing the projects, that's going to be moving all the time. So if we're here capturing the information as we speak, if there's things happening, you know, even as we're talking, that's going to be updated. So more to come, but absolutely understand how important it is to have fresh updates so everybody can be informed.
And then also, going piggyback on that, are we going to be letting our schools know prior to, like, the public knowing on that, so that they have an idea versus, you know, they get a call from the parent, oh, hey, here we're going to have this done, and then the teachers or the principal's like, well, I didn't know that we were doing that. I just don't know. How are we working that with some of the different schools?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one of which we actually did discuss at the Bond Oversight Committee. There are going to be multiple means of communication. We're actually doing a communications plan and working with the actual communications group, but there are multiple stakeholders, community being one of those. And so one of the things I would love to do, and what we did at Tulsa Public, is that we publish the schedule. So say, for instance, on HVAC, so you would know what schools, when it was going to happen. And that's one of the things that we're looking at. So not only for community, but also for the teachers and staff. So when they get those questions, they'll know that, yeah, our school's doing this time. So really being detailed and having a repeatable process. So as we do the various projects, we'll get better and better. So I really believe in continuous process improvement. And as you hear things, or if there are things that we need to add, we'll constantly be improving. But I'm planning a full communications plan, because most projects fail because of communication. So, and we were told also that people definitely want to know what's happening.
Well, thank you, Dr. Carter. We look forward to having you on the team.
Thank you.
Board members, any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. Okay. Now we are moving on to consent agenda, items 6.1 through 6.6. Dr. Trujillo.
Mr.
President Luna Rose, I'd like to recommend governing board consideration of the consent agenda as presented and agendized item 6.2 to 6.6.
Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. I'd like to pull item 6.3.
Okay.
I have some questions. So maybe vote on it separately.
Any other?
That's it.
Okay. Item 6.3, approval of summer school STEM kits from National Investors Hall of Fame for purchase in excess of $250,000?
Correct.
Okay.
So what are the particular questions?
Yes,
And I'll ask Dr. Hewitt and our team. If it's a purchasing question, I'll ask that Diana Kerfoot be ready to go as well.
It's, I guess, sort of both. So, shall I wait for them?
I think they're coming.
Okay. So, you know, this is a little more than $500,000. It's for K through 7, and it's like, you know, 7,000 students. And so, you know, my daughter went through many years of summer school, and like, if it's sort of the same kits that she's been bringing home, I do remember them, and, you know, they're cool and everything. But I just wonder, since this year, since we're focusing on those students that have like the most need in advancing in reading, math, ELA, I'm just wondering if this sort of kit is helping them advance in those subject matters, or is it more of like, oh, this is a fun activity, we're building this, we could take it home, it's like a nightlight. You know what I mean? Like some of the things that my daughter brought home.
Yeah, I'll invite the team up to address the summer school model and where these materials fit in.
Thank you.
Expenditure-wise, this is the last block of ESSER funding that had already been previously committed to summer school funds. So this does not hit, obviously, the district budget.
Good evening, President Luna Rose and board members. So it is the same sort of structure of science STEM kits that we've used in the past. Typically, what we have done is done 4, which is 1 kit per week of summer school. This summer, we have increased the blocks for ELA and math and reduced the amount of STEM blocks that we have. So instead of 4 kits, the kids are going to be doing 2. But one of the nice things about the kits is that they engage kids in reading about the exciting things. So they learn about inventors who invented, you know, different things that we're all used to these days. So it's more of embedded reading and writing, and of course, mathematical processes. And then they have skill development time, specifically in ELA and math. So the way that our block works is it's 4 hours, and they might have 2 days a week, they have a 45-minute OMA session, which again is integrated ELA and math skills through the fine arts. So then they'll have a 45-minute STEM session and 1 hour for ELA and 1 hour for math. On days that they don't have OMA, they will have an hour and a half for STEM. So it is reduced from previous years and the amount of kits in half, but we think it's still important. What it does is it engages our kids as learners in something that's engaging and relevant, that, you know, they're excited about, and they do include especially literacy skills in the lessons.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that. It's helpful to kind of know how the day is laid out, and so. Do we have any data about how the participation in summer school kind of shifted students' I guess, proficiency levels in math and ELA reading?
In the past, we've done a pre and post test on different skills that we were teaching. This year, we have a very detailed assessment plan. We're actually training teachers this week on Wednesday and Thursday evenings on our data plan and what they'll be collecting actually daily data information from students. In the past, we've just done a pre and post, but yeah, of course, the post, showed skill advancement from the pre. But this year's summer school, because of its real shift from re-engaging students, once we came back from the pandemic, our focus was really just like helping kids become learners in person again and re-engage as academia, and as scholars. And this year we've really shifted the goals of summer school, and along with that, the assessment.
Okay. And so you say that there was growth, academic growth from the pre and post test. Was it like a large amount or just minor?
Yes, I mean, there's very specific skills, right? So we looked at standards that students had not done well with on benchmarks, and then re-administered, benchmarks, basically. A good example is our Move On When Reading, where our students made really significant growth, enough growth to avoid retention. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that those students who are participating in summer school, I know we're so close to summer, and so it would probably be very difficult to shift and, find a different way to address that issue. But I just want to make sure we're making the most impact during that short amount of time.
Yeah, and I think it's important to realize, too, that interventions are most effective when they're consistent every day, when they're focused on specific skills that students need. It's not necessarily about time. Having a student, sit down for 3 hours of math help isn't as effective as maybe 1 hour that's very targeted, that's assessed, that provides small group instruction. The important thing is consistency. So frequency of an intervention and intensity of that intervention is really what the research says.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Board members, any other questions? Okay. So we are moving on consent agenda. So I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay. So moved by myself, second by Ms. Ekstrom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Now we are moving on to 7.1, administrative appointments, reassignments, and transfers, interim director, exceptional education. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, governing board members, President Luna Rose. Tonight, we would like to formally recommend Megan Montanero to continue serving as the interim assistant director for exceptional education for the 24-25 school year. Megan Montanero is currently serving as our interim assistant director for exceptional education, and we would like to recommend that she continues on in this role. The permanent process will be opened up. We will, of course, be going through the formal interview and selection process. As an interim candidate, as with all interim candidates, interims are also responsible for interviewing, participating in the permanent interview and selection process should they want to retain the position on a permanent basis. So with that, Ms. Montanero is our recommendation this evening.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Board members, any questions? Ms. Ekstrom.
I will move to approve Megan Montanero to serve as interim assistant director of exceptional education.
All right.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Ms. Ekstrom, second by Ms. Shaw. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Congratulations. Come up and say a few words.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. I have enjoyed working for TUSD and being part of all the diversity and inclusiveness within Region 3 that I support. I look forward to collaborating and creating individualized plans for students to ensure success. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And you have to go through the congratulation line. Okay. Now we are on to 7.2, proclamation of May 8th, 2024 as School Nurse Day in Tucson Unified School District.
Yes, members of the governing board, I'd like to welcome our Director for Health Services, Dr. Joseph Gaw. He will be reading the proclamation to declare May 8th as School Nurse Day in Tucson. Since 1972, National School Nurse Day has been set aside to recognize school nurses and all that they do to keep our kids, our communities, and of course our employees healthy, happy, and safe. Dr. Gaw?
Very good. Thank you, board. Thank you, members of the public. Whereas students are the future, and by investing in them today, we are ensuring our world for tomorrow. And whereas families deserve to feel confident that their children will be cared for when they are at school, and whereas all students have a right to have their physical and mental health needs safely met while in the school setting, and whereas students today face more complex and life-threatening health problems requiring care in school, and whereas school nurses have served a critical role in improving public health and in ensuring students' academic success for more than 120 years, and whereas school nurses address the home and community factors, ergo the social determinants that impact students' health, and whereas school nurses are professional nurses that advance the well-being, academic success, and lifelong achievements of all students by serving on the front lines and providing a critical safety net for our nation's most fragile children, and whereas school nurses act as a liaison for the school community, families, and healthcare providers on behalf of children's health by promoting wellness and improving health outcomes of our nation's children, and whereas school nurses support the health and educational success of children and youth by providing access to when children's cognitive development is at peak, and whereas school nurses are members of school-based teams, ergo school health services, 504 IEP, disaster emergency planning, providing care coordination to address the school population, and whereas school nurses understand the link between health and learning and are in a position to make a positive difference for children every day, therefore be it Thank you. Resolved that the governing board of the Tucson Unified School District celebrates and acknowledges the accomplishments of school nurses and school health staff in their efforts to meet the needs of today's students by providing and advocating for quality student-centered care, and offers gratitude for the district's school nurses and much valued health assistants that support them, who contribute to our local communities by supporting students to stay healthy in school, safe and ready to learn, and keeping parents and their guardians at work, not just on this National Nurses Day, but also National School Nurses Day, but in every opportunity throughout the year. Now, therefore, the governing board of the Tucson Unified School District does hereby proclaim Wednesday, May 8th, 2024 as School Nurses Day, which includes our school health assistants.
Thank you, Dr. Gaw. All right. I would like to move the item.
I'll second the item, and I would just like to say my mom was a school nurse, and that was the best time of her life, and she was there up until she passed away. So I really have a soft place in my heart for school nurses. So thank you for bringing this to us.
Thank you. And it's also important that you all know, thanks to multiple grants that we have received as well, we now have, I believe it's now 14 nationally certified school nurses in TUSD, which is one of the highest in the state. So that's actually a really huge accomplishment.
Congratulations. Okay, moved by myself, second by Ms. Ekstrom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you,
very
Dr.
much.
Gaw. And thank you to all our school nurses across the district and health assistants. I know as a parent, when you get that call from the school nurse, it's always like, but it's always such a kind and caring staff. So thank you again for all your work and your staff, Dr. Gaw. Okay, we are on to 7.3, approval of contracts for certified staff of the Tucson Unified School District for the 24-25 school year.
Yes, governing board members, I want to welcome our Chief Human Capital Officer, Mr. Fernandez, with the third round, another round of contractual renewal for our certified teachers.
Yes, good evening, Madam President and members of the board. Before you have, again, as Dr. Trujillo said, round 3 of our certificated teachers contract renewals. And these are 39 teachers that you've received, and these are the RTI interventionist teachers that the board took action in your last board meeting to provide funding to support for the coming school year. So the 39 on your list, once the board reviews and issues its approval, will be able to get them their contracts for the coming school year. Thank you.
Okay. Board members, any questions? Okay. I will move the item.
Second.
All right, moved by myself, second by Mr. Romero. So I got it right this time. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it.
All right. Have a
Thank you,
good
Mr.
evening.
Fernandez.
Thank you.
And congratulations to our RTI teachers. Okay, 7.4, approval to award a request for proposal RFP, special education teachers, substitutes, and teachers assistants. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Luna Rose, members of the governing board. Just as a little bit of a context, before I invite our team to address any questions, this agenda item is about IEP compliance. Per federal legislation, all of our students in the exceptional education program are guaranteed services and resources through the individual education plan, which is part of IDEA legislation, Individuals with Educational Disabilities Act. We as a district are responsible for complying with the services and the resources that are approved in these IEPs in order to guarantee students FAPE. Students with disabilities are entitled to free access to public education. Another very, very significant piece of federal legislation known as FAPE. When we have teachers' assistants that are assigned as one-on-one aides to students with disabilities, or we have ex-ed paraprofessionals that have been assigned to classrooms as part of an IEP commitment, when we have exceptional education teachers that carry a specific level of certification by the Arizona Department of Education, highly qualified in teaching special education, when they're out and we don't replace them on a temporary basis, it presents liability for the district, okay? This is about coverage, this is about liability. This isn't about outsourcing permanent jobs. When we have an exceptional education parapro that might be ill for 7 or 8 days, if we don't have a daily temp that's able to step in there when we've exhausted all other resources and nobody's taking that job, we have an obligation to staff it. If it's one, especially if it's one of our medically fragile classrooms, if something goes wrong and a student has an incident, there's a significant increase in the probability of liability against the district. So this is a item that we need vitally. We welcome any special education certified. That's the key. Highly qualified special education teachers with an active K-12 special education certificate with an endorsement in cross-categorical. If we have subs in that category, absolutely come in and fill the position, okay? Where we will not be compliant is if we have a non-highly qualified exceptional education substitute teacher, one that does not possess an active Arizona Department of Education K-12 certificate with exceptional education endorsements, and we have such a teacher with students with disabilities over a long period of time. That will present significant liability to this district. So with that, giving it a little bit of context, I want to turn it over to Dr. Salmon, who is our Senior Director for Exceptional Education in the district.
Yes, thank you so much. Good evening, Madam President and board members. And I just want to bring this item to you to let you know this is something that we've been working on for several years. When I came into this position, we had a severe shortage of teachers. We've been actively working to recruit them. And so last year we brought in 25 teachers internationally. Next year we're bringing in another 26. And so that's 51 teachers we're hiring internationally, not to mention the teachers that we're recruiting and we're hiring at job fairs. We're hiring on social media. We're just putting the information out there. So we are actively looking to hire within. We've been working in collaboration with Human Resources for Grow Your Own programs. And so we do have 7 paraprofessionals who are doing Make the Move. And so these are individuals with bachelor's degrees and they want to become special education teachers. And so in order for them to do that, we're providing assistance with tuition, and then they will also be eligible for a stipend once they complete that. And so that's a slower process in order to replenish our pool. And so by having access to vendors, this gives us an opportunity to have the highly qualified, talented teachers as well as substitute teachers and paraprofessionals who are available when we have those vacancies. And so we can contract with them, and at any moment, if we get a teacher to fill that vacancy, we just let the vendor know, hey, we have a teacher, and so we no longer need this teacher. And so we are contracted for a number of teachers, but we can move them around to another place. So this is not replacing, it's not taking the place of a position where we have a viable candidate that's available. And so we haven't even started to reach out to look for contract teachers or subs or TAs at this point. We have a job fair coming up on May the 11th, and so we're hoping to fill as many positions as we can at that point. And then after that job fair, that's when we'll start reaching out to vendors to say, okay, we still see that we have this program with students with autism, or we have this program for students with intellectual disabilities, or this cross-categorical self-contained program, and we must have a teacher who's highly qualified in this classroom to provide services. And so that's the way that we want to use this contract to bring them in. We also have teachers that are going on leaves of absence, or they're just going to be out for some training. And so this is where we have subs coming in. Sometimes teachers need some additional support, like they might need some social emotional training, and that's a 2-day training. It's a nice option to have a sub that can cover for the 2 days. Sometimes we have teachers who need more time to work on their paperwork and those documentations, and so we can bring subs in to cover in those spaces. We also reached out this year. We got the list of all of our sub teachers from the sub office, and we reached out individually to anyone who said they would want to be in an ex-ed classroom. We sent emails, we followed up with phone calls to say, okay, we have this classroom, and we gave them the information about the classroom and the students. Would you like to be a sub in this classroom? Are you interested in being a long-term sub? And so we had some yeses, and so we were able to fill those, and we certainly have some that have their ex-ed endorsements. And so we exhausted all those avenues, and we still have some positions that are vacant, and so the need is still there. So we're asking to have that availability. We don't anticipate we're going to need to hire $2 million worth, but we want to have that there so we don't have to come back and ask for more money. So that would be the maximum amount we would expect to expend.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Salmon. All right. Questions? Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. So how many vacancies do we have for these 3 positions, roughly?
Yes. So overall, we're looking at having about 38 teacher vacancies, and we would have about 35 TA vacancies throughout the district, and that's before we do any hiring at the job fair. We're also getting additional applications in for TAs, and so our exit office is interviewing weekly, and so on a weekly basis we interview between 5 and 10 candidates for TA positions, and so we've seen a lot of movement since February. We started off with 80 vacancies, and we've hired 42 people since February for the TA positions.
Okay. And then the subs would fill in when needed.
Right, when needed, if there's like a leave of absence or if we need teachers to do professional development or get some more support with documentation.
Okay. And you kind of mentioned this, but the 5-year contract, like if we happen to fill all these vacancies, we can end the contract prematurely without any penalty.
Yes, so we're expected to fill the contract for 1 year, but after that point, then if we fill the positions, we just let them know before the beginning of the school year that we don't have a need, so we don't have to continue with the service.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Ekstrom.
Do you know how many subs in our pool were talked to, given emails, phone calls, that sort of thing?
Right. There were 15 to 20 subs in the pool who said they were willing to take ex-ed classrooms. And so we sent an email initially to those, and then we followed up with phone calls with that 15 to 20.
So then those we reached out to those subs first?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Romero.
And you had said the process is kind of slow. Why is there slow movement in that process, or what? Walk us through that.
Right. So there's slow movement in the process to get teachers because, one, there's a national shortage. So we have fewer individuals who are going into exceptional education programs. And so we're not getting quite the number of teachers. We also have teachers who have a certification and they're choosing to do other things. And so we're not necessarily getting that pool. Within our district, we're working on the Grow Your Own. So that's a little bit slower because you have to have a bachelor's degree and that interest. And so we don't have a lot of individuals with a bachelor's degree. And so we are looking at options for individuals who have an associate's. And we know that's going to take a little bit longer to get your bachelor's degree and then also do your practicum and then get your certification, because the bachelor's degree is the entry level requirement for the state to get that exceptional education endorsement.
So it sounds like it's a pretty detailed process, but it's not the process that's the delay. It's the people coming in to fill up these spots to go through that process.
Yes.
Got it. And then as far as did we use the same company last year?
Yes, we used the same company last year. And so we are recommending a total of 5 companies. And so we go based on the scores and the RFP process. And so Maxim is the company that scored the highest. So we would start with Maxim when we have a need and ask them if they can fill the need. If they're unable to fill the need, then we would go to the second company. And then we go down the list through all 5 of those vendors.
Okay, and then I know the ask here is $2 million. Is that for the full 5 years we go through that, or $2 million on an annual basis?
That's $2 million on an annual basis.
Okay, and do we know what we paid last year?
Last year we paid about $1.5 million.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have Dr. Salmon. Thank you. So the substitute teachers, if they have a special ed endorsement, the ones within our own pool, are they allowed to do any sort of IEP paperwork, or is it strictly, coming in and filling in for professional development days and that sort of thing?
Yes, if our sub teachers have that endorsement, that certification, they are allowed to provide specially designed instruction, and they're also allowed to write IEPs.
Okay. And there's no, with the IDEA, there's no sort of boundary concerning that? Like we're not any violation of that?
Right.
Okay.
Right, as long as they're properly credentialed, they're able to do those things as a sub.
Okay. All right. Board members, any other questions? Oh, Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. And so despite this contract, if approved, your office will still be reaching out to subs who have the special ed endorsement to try to offset the need to contract with Maxim over our other opportunities.
Absolutely. We will start with our pool that we have here, and then when we have a need still, that's when we would reach out to Maxim or any other vendor.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, Dr. Salmon? Okay. I will move the item.
Second.
Okay, moved by myself, second by Ms. Ekstrom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, Dr. Salmon. Okay, we are on to 7.5, approval to procure goods and services for bond project priorities. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, very excited for this item. This is your first phase of projects that our team is coming to for potential approval. Successfully approved by the Bond Oversight Committee a week ago. So with that, I'd like to welcome our team to present Dr. Charlotte Carter in our first phase of projects.
Good evening again. I want to talk about the procurement for the bond priority projects and kind of give you an idea how we came to these priorities. So we looked at this comprehensively, and we wanted to make sure that we had the right criteria. And what we looked at is the Facilities Condition Index score. We looked at surveys school administration had already taken, work orders. We looked at the vendor and district capacity. And what I mean by that, the capacity of the vendors to do the work as well as the district. And then we looked at the complexity and risk. One of the things we want to make sure is that if we say that we're going to do things, that we want to be able to have the best success to deliver. In doing so, the Priority 1 projects that were selected are 4. It's the HVAC package units. The quantity is 461 units at 14 schools, over 11 million. Marquees, 8 schools. AEDs, 57 schools. And then updated technology. That consists of chargers, active boards, laptops, etc. And that's from the district-wide perspective. So those projects, what we're looking at, we decided to break it down to Q1 initially. And what that does is allows us to really set benchmarks to know how fast and how we can make sure that we can do the projects and make sure we can measure that. And as we do that, that informs us on doing a schedule for other projects. So you go slow to go fast. And so these particular projects, when we looked at that criteria, we felt like these are projects that we could complete Q1, which is October 11th. The Priority 1 projects are about $12.8 million, and we added a 5% contingency allowance. Any questions before, let me pause, about the projects? And I do want to mention that it doesn't mean that these projects necessarily are not, the other projects that weren't selected are not important. They're all important, but we can't do all of it at once. And so we picked what we felt like we would be able to achieve, that was the need, and then this is what we're going to start with to do our benchmarking. Okay, I'll proceed. Now, of that list, we have remaining phase 1 bond projects. So if we're successful and we're able to go faster than we thought, there are other projects that are very high on the list that can be prioritized and that are remaining. That's pavement and parking, interscholastics, security, access control, security window film, and fine arts improvements. So you might be wondering, what are the next steps? Well, the Bond Oversight Committee, they did approve these projects. So that was really great that there was approval of these projects on April 18th. So the first phase is that we have existing district contracts and cooperatives that we can use, and agreements for these projects. But if they exceed the $250,000 mark, it requires bond approval, and bond office will continue to roll out these recommendations with the committee's review, and future projects will be evaluated. And so that way we can make sure that we can start ordering and start like immediately to be able to roll out these projects. But we want to come to you first and make sure that we have your approval before we do this. So it's super exciting that the money is here. We know the projects. Now it's time to execute, assuming we get board approval. Let me pause for questions.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Carter. Ms. Ekstrom.
Is it possible to get a listing of which schools these projects will take place at?
Sure. If we would, there was a document that was also supplied that had the specific schools.
So I do see that for gates and security.
I think they're pulling it up, but it's multiple pages.
Okay, so then.
And it has, he's blowing it up and hopefully.
Okay, so these are by alphabetical order. So I'm just wondering, is that how we're doing this, or how are we choosing which schools are getting these first projects done?
Great question. So it's dependent on the vendor's capability, because we've already started working with the vendors and when the equipment's going to be here and when they're available to do it, if that makes sense.
So are we going based on like the highest need then, or is it just the availability of that vendor?
I'm going to ask Damon, but from my standpoint, it's more the availability. As soon as we get the list and as soon as they're capable, and we're also looking at having multiple vendors, not just one, so that way we can go faster and we can compress the schedule. So that, I mean, it's a combination of that as soon as we get the equipment.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Did I miss anything?
So if you want to go back to your presentation slide, where you identify the FCI, school administration.
So like for the HVAC units, we have Davis, Lawrence, Monzo. So is that in the most need? Is that how that's being,
so
okay.
If you go back to the bond priority criteria, we evaluated based on the facilities condition index score, the surveys based on school administration, work orders, and then the vendor and district capacity, and then the complexity on if we can get these accomplished soon. So that's what we based the priority on.
But wasn't your question more so on when it's going to be installed, the order that it's going to be installed?
Right. So
right.
On the proposed bond projects, that report that we have replaced HVAC package units. So then we have Davis is number one, then Lawrence, Monzo, Marshall. So is that how these schools fall into place? Davis is the most need?
That is correct.
Okay.
And the way they'll be evaluated is, and the priority based on, again, we will be using, the request has been one GPA and our HVAC contractors, and they will provide us that list.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Romero.
Staying on that, Damon, don't go too far. Piggyback on the HVAC, and I'm just kind of looking at some of these, like Ms. Ekstrom mentioned, Davis, and I look down here at Lawrence and Monzo, looking at there's like Lawrence has 49 package units at the cost of 1190, and then Monzo has 32 package units, which is at 1,200,000 or 200,000. But there's more package units is going in at Lawrence. Is there a reason why different package units are going on, or why for 32 more package units are costing more than 49?
That's a great question. So the difference in cost is when we went out to evaluate each site, there's different scopes of work identified for these sites. So the ones that are more costly needed curbs rebuilt because they were either crushed or they were not even. So they're having to bring in new curbing to build up the platform for the new units to set on. So there was more scope of work identified and those costs that are higher than the others.
Perfect. Thank you.
Ms. Shaw?
Yeah, thank you. I think some of the board members addressed some of the questions that I had, but if you could just explain for us and to the audience kind of what access control means. Like, I'm thinking the buttons when you're entering a school campus, but maybe it's more than that.
Yes, good evening. Again, access control is exactly that. It's identifying one point of access to the site and having it controlled either with a push button, an AI phone, or a card. So basically a card reader, a push button that identifies and gets called to the front desk, and they push a button to open it. So you identify one point of access for the site and place that access control there.
Okay, great. Let's see. Did I see Sam Hughes on this list for fencing? I thought I saw it. Sam Hughes on here. Oh yeah, it's
Can you go to fencing on the list?
Number 1, security, fencing, and gates. So I know there was a big hullabaloo about the gates at Sam Hughes. Are they going to be getting their wrought iron fence? Or
So we are evaluating that right now. We're partnering with the city of Tucson, the neighborhood coalition, to get the funding for wrought iron to evaluate at that site.
Okay.
And we met with them about 2 weeks ago.
So is that like, are they adding into the funding source for that, or are all the schools going to get that quality of fence?
They will be, each site will be evaluated by our school safety department for wrought iron. If funding is available, we'll take a look at that. But Sam Hughes specifically is getting an influx of money from the city of Tucson, from the Ward 1 office, as well as, I believe, a contribution from the neighborhood.
The Ward 1 office, they're giving it to the school for this fence?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Thanks.
Mr. Romero?
And going back to the HVAC units for the certain amount of numbers like Davis, 25 units, is that all the units? These number here, are these replacing all the units at the schools?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and then also in going after that, new units in here, what are we going to have for annual maintenance on these things to maintain them for longer periods of time? Because I know what we've had in some of the different things, we get a work order, now it's fix and repair, replace, and we've got like Maxwell Morgan where we weren't sure if we're going to start school that day because we had people coming out to get to that, versus being reactive and being more doing the maintenance aspects so we have limited problems in the future. Do we have a plan for that also?
Yes, that's a great question. And the biggest component there is the warranty that's going to be identified. It's going to be a standard warranty for the first couple years of the unit's existence. That'll allow our HVAC department to become familiar with the unit as far as the maintenance, which should be a lot easier as to what we're doing now, really troubleshooting on the spot 20 and 25-year-old units.
Right, so we will be putting something in place where we can say that on an annual basis, we're hitting all these schools. Because I know usually in HVAC, you have the winter and the summer, so you want your winter service and your summer service. So I just want to make sure that we're getting our new toys, we take care of them.
That is correct.
Okay.
Dr. Shaw?
Thank you, President Luna Rose. I think one of the goals was to actually save money on our M&O budget by having a lot of these upgrades. And I'm not sure if there's a way to predict it or a way to report back some of the cost savings that we've had over a course of a year or even 6 months or semester about with these new units in place, with some of these, whether it's the fencing and things that we've been able to upgrade, but especially for our HVAC and some of our facilities upgrades, what will be the cost savings down the road?
Yes, most definitely. So what we're doing right now is providing an evaluation on existing costs, the investment, and basically expanding it on short-term and long-term. So we'll be able to see, once the evaluation is complete, what that short-term savings is versus the initial investment, and then a long-term savings.
Great.
In addition, we'll also provide some green information on the units that are being installed.
And one of the things that we're really trying to do is do a good job on tracking, so we can actually be able to see before and after where we can. So that is something definitely top of mind, is how do we measure.
Thank you. I did have a quick question concerning access to updated educational technology district-wide. So how is that being determined?
I'm having the SME, subject matter expert, answer that question.
Thank you. The technology is it's based district-wide, based on needs. So, as you know, we have, for example, the one-to-one device program that provided students with laptops and hotspots and Chromebooks based on the damage number of those devices. That's how the technology will be provided. That's one example.
Okay, so like replacing whatever has
been
ma'am. Ruined throughout the school year?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's what I thought, but I wanted to follow up on that.
There will be other technology to come later, but for that first phase, it's mainly replacing the damage and lost.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Board Member, Ms. Shaw.
Is there any significance with the highlighted information?
The highlighted are the 4 projects that were selected and approved by the Bond Oversight Committee. So that's the difference. So if you go to the top of the presentation, and so go down to the first yellow. As I asked, I was thinking the same thing, so I verified. So there's the AEDs. That's highlighted. Go to the next one, please. So then HVAC. So the yellow are the 4 that we're proposing to have Q1.
Okay.
Marquees, and then the last is technology.
So the other stuff that's not highlighted has not been approved by them yet or reviewed?
Well, it's not part of the implementation for October 11th. So we're doing a phased approach, which is very common, especially at the beginning. And then I'm going to come back in May with what's to come. Okay. And then if we do finish things early, this is where, we have a plan. So the idea is to start slow, to go fast.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And then finally, I was speaking to a fine arts, I think he was the band director of Tucson High School, and he mentioned the need to check with the fine arts teachers about any facilities improvements before I guess setting the plan. I don't know if in the past there was purchases of microphones or anything that kind of didn't relate to the need of that specific school site, but just checking to see if we are conferring with those specialty teachers to make sure that what is ordered is actually what is needed.
Do we have anyone representing instructional? I think I know the answer, but I'd rather have the SME say it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question. I know Dr. Ashcraft has been part of the committee and has been consulted as part of this process, but if you have any detailed questions, I'm happy to bring that back to her, but it's my understanding that they have been part of this process.
Okay, so each school that I'm seeing here for the fine arts improvements are talking with you all about their specific needs?
Correct.
Okay, great.
And that is the approach. I know the approach for projects is human-centered design, whereas you should include the person or the stakeholders that are actually the ones going to be using the products or service. And so we're making sure they're included, because what we don't want to do is to build something or implement something that's not going to meet the need, and then we didn't have the buy-in.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Romero.
Can you, I guess, explain to me the AEDs? Is it something we're replacing in all the schools?
It's Dr. Goff.
So if you're not aware, we have about 17% of sites that have at least one AED. So you have the majority of the schools that do not. So typically in the past, how that's worked is typically sporting events would get them that sort of thing. So that was a concern for health and wellness of public safety for some time. So we were able to secure some per grant, but the bond will now ensure that we have at least one unit per site all the way across the district.
Okay, so this is just giving for the health and safety of the athletes. It sounds like it's mostly for athletes type of things.
Yeah, so that's where they typically began at, but the actual district didn't have an actual program in place for that. We do now. So we are now tracking every AED in the system, and those who are expired we're getting rid of, and those that need batteries or that are still usable, we've been replacing those. But you now have a coordinator in the district, who is me, who is monitoring all of these AEDs now. So you now have not only high schools, which typically have them for sporting cases, right? But you now have them in high schools, and most of the junior highs now, because of our grant, or the last the 14 AEDs we got from the prior board meeting approval, and that last one is installing, I believe, tomorrow or Wednesday, and then all of them are out. So the next step is to ensure that whatever junior highs do not have one, then we have all the other schools that still need them too. But keep in mind, yes, we target students as the main purpose for placing AEDs, but there's staff and there's community people who come in all the time too. So yes, it may seem like, should we have an AED in a K-5 school? But in reality, there's more than children there in that community.
And you said, do these do you have expiration dates then on these?
We are tracking all of that. So we have a software program in place now that is currently tracking as we get them into the system. We are now monitoring them for not only the units themselves, so pads and batteries as well. We have a sustainability plan proposed as well. We also have a standard operating procedure in place also for this, and every unit is being tracked by the Arizona the AZ share program as well.
Okay, so I'm just kind of the biggest things like $1,940. This is kind of a one-time thing for that, but there's small things like batteries and pads and things of that nature. But
All
the
the
whole
time.
unit doesn't have to be replaced. So if they all expired at the same time, we're not coming up with this big lump to do them all again at all the different sites. Am I understanding correctly?
Yeah, so this particular bond would, the target unit is a unit that speaks both English and Spanish. It has a battery and pad life that's 5 years in length. The unit shelf life is a lot longer than that, and the intent is to maximize the use of the equipment for as long as possible, with a hopeful plan that we will invest continuously on that process, because we could put a unit into place, but once we put it into place, we still have to maintain it and so and such. So we have all the structure in place. The bond will hand us the units now.
Perfect. Thank you. That
Sure.
was a question on that. And I had one more question for HVAC, Damien, again. Sorry. On that central control system that you were talking on, that is that going to be wired or is that wireless?
The EMCS controls are
Yes.
all wired.
They are all wired.
Yes, sir.
And so will this kind of also oversee, so say like a teacher cannot mistakenly leave like the AC on all night long or the furnace on all night long. It's controlled or monitored by the hub, wherever that's at. So there again, like Dr. Shaw was mentioning, savings in these types of things, because we do have, we're taking the human part of it out, and we do have monitor systems on it, correct?
That is correct. And
Awesome.
there'll be set points, and they'll be monitored in our central HVAC system and facilities on a daily basis.
And they can only be adjusted in that central hub, not overridden by anybody else. Awesome, thank you.
Okay. Dr. Shaw.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I understood what the action that administration is asking for tonight. So we're asking for the entire phase one, not just the parts that are highlighted, but the entire phase one. And we're asking to go out for procurement. So will this come back to us? So if anything over 250 will come back to us later for final approval, or what exactly are we approving tonight? And what's the timeline on what's going to happen in terms of next steps?
Yes, I'd like to invite the team.
Yes, Dr. Shaw, that's a great question. What we wanted to do was to be able to bring this to you to let you know that we're going to use current district contracts, we're going to use cooperative contracts, but that we know that items on this list are going to be over $250,000. They wanted to be able to move forward, so we wanted to come to you and be able to get your permission to go ahead and move forward and not have to come back to you each time, but that they'll keep you consistently updated with, you know, the spends that are going through, and we'll be watching that, but just not having to bring it back to you each time, because that way, you know, it kind of gets confusing, and this way they can get going. And they do have those 4 specific items that are listed that they did want to get started with. So we wanted to get your permission to go ahead and at least move forward with those. But I know Dr. C said she'll come back in May, and then we can let you know then, you know, we'll give you updates as we go.
So only for the highlighted ones then tonight?
No,
Not
I
just
think
for the,
we want it actually for everything that we want to let you know, but then we'll bring back and just keep you updated as we go.
So what we're saying, we're going to keep you informed, but let's go ahead with this first list. The only reason why we broke it down is so we can, you know, have our measurements and be able to start. And then, but I mean, we're going to be well on our way.
Okay. Can I have
Yes, Dr. Shaw, go ahead.
another follow-up question? So we haven't approved anything yet in terms of a climate action policy, but that's coming back to us for a second read in a few weeks. If the governing board does decide to approve that, how will the requirements in the climate action policy be integrated into the purchasing of, especially the HVACs and some of the other things on here?
I'm not sure the question on that.
I will say that that's a very difficult question to answer. We've not been back for a second read. There's still no feasibility information that we've been able to provide the governing board members. We're still in the process of doing the analysis of infrastructure, cost feasibility, as well as impact on staffing. specifically as it relates to HVAC. So it's we wouldn't be able to answer that readily until that analysis was complete. In terms of further clarification here, everything in yellow is targeted for an October 11th completion date. The list in its entirety is Priority 1 in its entirety as approved by the Bond Oversight Committee. Price tag for Priority 1 projects, a little bit north of $26 million. That's inclusive of the contingency. Is that okay?
That's correct.
So we approve this tonight. Will we start purchasing HVAC equipment that doesn't meet standards that we may or may not approve in a few weeks?
So the units that we are looking at are higher efficiency. They meet the ASHRAE standard of 90.1, which is a LEED standard for silver.
Okay. Board members, any other questions? Okay. So I do believe we're up for a vote. Anybody like to move the item?
I'll move the item.
I'll second.
All right. So moved by Ms. Ekstrom, second by Mr. Romero. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you so much to the Bond Committee team and to the Bond Oversight Committee for their work on this. And it's a really exciting project, and continue our transparency to the public on their trust in us as the district to beautify our schools. Thank you so much. Okay, we are on to 8.1, request to move Tucson Unified School District's Juneteenth observance holiday from Friday, June 21st, 2024 to Wednesday, June 19th, 2024. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Luna Rose, members of the governing board. A year ago this spring, the governing board did take action to designate the third Friday in June on a yearly basis as the observance of the Juneteenth holiday. In observance of board member Shaw's request, at our first meeting in March, we're returning at her request to see if the governing board is open to redesignating Juneteenth for this year to June 19th, which is the actual day of the Juneteenth federal holiday. I've asked the team to be prepared for financial implications, to inform you of the financial aspects of the move, whatever they may be, in advance of your consideration. Mr. Armenta?
Good evening, Madam Board President Luna Rose, board members and staff that is here. We are coming back to provide this information for you. These are our three objectives tonight. So kind of our guiding principles for that was looking at the observance to move it actually to the federal holiday, which is that Wednesday, June 19th. So that did come from board member Sadie Shaw. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Going back and looking at this, we have three guiding principles. In this case, when we think about that movement that we're looking at, it doesn't impact the 12-month employees as they are continuing to work. It will impact 7K summer school, and we do have Ms. Heidi Aranda here to kind of give you that information on what that impact is. And then just a reminder that summer school funding is out of ESSER currently. But in the future, if we look at other funding, we will have to make that and bring that back to you. We also have Mr. Ricky Hernandez here to bring you that information of specifics of that funding. As we move forward, we are here, I'll start from high school and then I'll work back to K-7 because there might be some questions there in that area. But when we look at the high school, we had already made this adjustment last year. Our board gave us that guidance as we walked into doing this process starting back in October and November. So we know that we had already had this observance placed into our calendar for the 21st. So we in high school had already built that based off of that timeline. So we know that we had already built that into our schedule, that we added that additional day. When we look at the second session where it's about to make that impact, we do have enough days to make that move from the Friday to the Wednesday on that. Freshman Academy, in this case, will continue to have its 20 days of instruction, so we don't see that impact there in the high school. Where we do see the impact, and I will call up Heidi Rhonda here to kind of give you that on K-7, that's where we see some sort of implications there.
Okay, good evening, Governing Board. So in the K-7 program, this is a Monday through Thursday program, And so previously with the holiday on a Friday, it did not impact K7. Moving it to the Wednesday this summer, it would impact one of our days of instruction. So the program would run 15 days of instruction instead of 16 days as one alternative. We did contact the Arizona Department of Education, as we have many schools that have 21st century programs and have mandates as far as hours and days of summer programs. And because of the amount of hours we offer, we are still in compliance with 21st century. During the week of June 17th, school would be in session Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, which could impact and cause high absences on the 20th, being that it would be just coming back for one day before the weekend. In addition to the summer school impacts, I wanted to bring to your attention that summer is also a busy time for us with professional development. And so we do have 12 summer professional development sessions that day with 365 attendees. We are hosting the Arizona Desert Institute. They are renting Catalina High School. This is College Board. It's the AP Institute. And that would impact that training, as it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday training. So they would have to probably add in Friday and not have the Wednesday. So I just wanted to also bring up that impact to professional development as well as summer school. With that,
Okay.
any questions?
Questions, board members? Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. And so basically you're saying that we found a way to move the professional development that was supposed to be on that Wednesday to another day, and also just kind of shift around the K7 summer school to accommodate the holiday.
Yeah, in K7, we would just eliminate one of those days. It was too difficult to try to add it in because it would mess up the routine a little bit. With the College Board is awaiting our response. The AP Desert Institute is not only for TUSD teachers, it's for the Pima County AP teachers. So they're awaiting word so that they can make adequate travel arrangements, extend days of consultants as consultants fly in to do this training.
I see. And then for our salaried people that may or may not be working, they will also get the day off, right? Or are
That's correct. The 12-month employees are already compensated for that particular holiday. The only individuals who are not compensated and will not be compensated would continue to be summer school staff that are essentially off contract at that point.
Wait, so summer school staff won't get paid for the holiday?
We do not pay summer school staff for the Juneteenth holiday. We didn't do it last June. There is no plan to do it this June. We pay the 12-month employees to do that because they're not working. There is no, it's a supplemental position. It's not their actual teaching and or permanent job at that time.
But if it's supplemented, can't we supplement the paid holiday? Because isn't that the whole nature of this? It's a paid holiday.
It's a paid holiday for people who are actually working on that day. And so summer school is not, for example, we don't pay people for the 4th of July. We don't pay people for the Memorial Day. So for example, Freshman Academy starts May 29th. It's the Tuesday after Memorial Day. We won't pay people for, the March or May 28th rather instead of May 29th and May 28th. We don't pay people for the Memorial Day holiday, even though summer school technically starts the following day. Same thing with the 4th of July. We don't pay summer school staff or any summer staff during the 4th of July holiday, even if it happens to be that they, summer custodians, for example, they don't work that day. It's 4th of July. It's closed. They don't get paid for that day.
Oh, I'm having a hard time understanding this because if they were already, say the K through 7 people who will be working, if they were already going to be working 16 days but we're eliminating one day for this supposed paid holiday, but they're not getting paid. That's like kind of counterintuitive and
I
wrong.
don't know how else to explain.
Dr. Trujillo?
We have different contract years for positions in the district. The majority of summer school staff, those are 9.5 contract month. That's 9.5 month contract for classroom teachers. When that 9.5 months end, they're no longer on their work year. So any work they do for us after that is on a per diem basis. Enter summer school. They're coming into summer school. We're paying them on a per diem basis. It's not their permanent position because they're already on off contract time. And so that's where if they get paid for the days that they work. So if there's no class that day and they're not teaching, they're off of their 9.5 month contract. So there's no financial obligation for us to pay them. Similar to a teacher that's not working summer school, they're just on their regular vacation time. Outside of their 9.5 month contract, you have 4th of July and you have these holidays. Well, we don't pay people that are off contract already for holidays versus somebody who is working 12 months. The 12-month people, absolutely, because you're still in your contract year, that's an actual contractual work day. We owe you the holiday pay. And that's really what the summer school issue is.
Dr. Shaw?
Thank you, President Luna Rosa. How much would it cost to pay our staff that one day? It's already budgeted because we were already going to pay them for the 16 days.
Right. So we would need to come up with an additional $300,000. This is based on fiscal year 24's summer school. That doesn't include the compensation for the professional development days. So we do pay the staff who attend PD a rate of pay, and so so it's 300 is the base. We're going to grow from there based on the number of attendees at the different, for the 600 individuals that Ms. Aranda mentioned earlier.
Right, but it's already budgeted for because we didn't have Juneteenth on the Wednesday prior to today.
It's budgeted for in the sense that we were not. For the summer school, yes, it's budgeted because we were expecting to have a day there. So now for these teachers, not necessarily, right? Because now they're going to have to come back and do the work. So, if we pay them, we're not having to pay them to take the holiday and pay them to come back on Friday.
Right. So I wouldn't do the pay for those for professional development because it's going to be moved to a different day, but I would do it for those teachers that would have worked the 16 days.
We wouldn't be able to bifurcate it like that.
Why not?
Because we have to. The equity, the parity issue in terms of compensation would then become a problem, right? Because now you're separating summer school from summer professional development, and I understand what you're trying to accomplish, but in all or nothing approach, we're going to run into a lot more difficulties and a lot more phone calls from teachers when their neighbor teacher is not teaching summer school, but they're in PD, they're not getting paid, but I am. We're going to run into parity and equity issues. That's the only thing that I would advise the board against dealing with.
Ms. Shaw?
Thank you for bringing that up, Dr. Shaw. I mean, if there's an equity issue, then pay them all. I mean, that's like that's
but
why
in,
we're
in the case of paying them all, we'd have to find additional money for the professional development, right? Because you're paying them for a holiday and they still have to come back on that Friday to do PD. Those teachers are still going to get expected to be compensated. The summer school is less of an issue, right? Because we're just replacing a day. But for PD, you're going to have to essentially double pay them.
For those who show up on the Friday, and you already said that may or may not be a high rate of people who show up.
We were talking about students. We weren't talking about staff.
For the professional development.
No, we were talking about summer school for students. So for staff,
for Thursday.
I mean, for that, if you replace the Wednesday and they have to come back on Friday, we have to pay them for the Wednesday, June 19th, and then Friday, June 21 for coming back to finish PD.
Right.
I mean, unless I'm mistaken, they're not going to get the full credit for the professional development unless they show up for the amount of time that they're required to show up.
I think taking a contract or taking a work for teaching a class for a summer school session is different than coming in for professional development. So I don't see the pay equity issue, and so I'm not as concerned as you are about that. And I think the whole purpose of a paid holiday is having a paid holiday, and I don't think we should penalize our summer school staff for having a paid holiday move to the day that it actually is. And the reason we did the observance last year in the first place was because the high schools were on a 4-day-a-week calendar, and if we moved it to a day when it would have been a high school day, then there was no makeup time, and everything's already set in terms of graduation and all the requirements for their credits. And that's why we made the decision last year to have the observed day. And the only reason we did it last year that way was because of just the calendar and the high school schedule. And this year, if that barrier isn't there, then there really shouldn't be a reason we shouldn't observe Juneteenth on Juneteenth. And again, I think having a paid holiday not being paid defeats the purpose.
Right. The only thing I will note is that when ESSER goes away at the end of this year, summer school is generally funded by Title I and by DSEG.
Right.
Right. So we've cut Title I 10% this year. This is fiscal year 25's Title I that is supposed to plan for summer school next year. It's those soft monies that we have to take into account. So that what that will mean is that in order to account for the holiday that you'd like to now pay, we will have to adjust the programming to fit a smaller budget because the capacity won't be there. There is no more ESSER, and the planning for the future is probably not a $4 million summer school. So it's easier to make that argument today because we have the capacity budgetarily to do it. A year from now, when Title I is the main source of funding, then we're adjusting for that, and then to ensure that we make the compensation happen, because we're having to pay for a day that they're not working. It would be a savings to the program that could actually be used in order to support the entire program.
Well, I'll push back a little bit on that one, because if we took no action tonight, then we'd be paying for 16 days of summer school. And next year we'd be paying for 16 days of summer school. So if we take action and move it and make it paid, we're still paying for 16 days of summer school. And next year paying for 16 days of summer school. So there isn't really a budgetary implication, because we're still paying for 16 days of summer school regardless of whether the students are receiving 16 days of summer school or not.
Right. Holidays cost public employers money simply because the public is not receiving the benefit of the work. That's
Right.
why that's the cost. I mean, and that's the debate that, for example, Pima County and City of Tucson had when they implemented Cesar Chavez Day is, well, we're already paying people to show up to work. Well, yeah, but now they're not showing up. So you're not really getting the benefit of the compensation they're being provided. That's where the cost is. So you're correct. I mean, we're still paying those people. We'll figure out professional development. I know one of the things that our colleagues and I have talked about is trying to implement this, for June of 2025, considering that the team has been working on summer school and summer professional development for the last 6 months.
Ms. Ekstrom?
So I guess my only concern is this year, because we don't know if teachers were assumed to have that Friday off. They may have already made plans, same with families. There's no guarantee, that they would come back to teach that day or the students would come back that day. So is it possible that next school year or next summer school, we actually start Juneteenth on the 19th? We learn from our mistake and not doing it before.
Yeah, that would be a more reasonable approach from the perspective of administration, simply because this calendar has been in effect since spring of 23. And so for the points that you pointed out, Mrs. Extra, we've had individuals, families who have to figure out childcare in the middle of summer, professional development. You've got 3-day weekends, people leave town because nobody wants to be here when it's 100 million degrees, just the litany of things that are happening. And so it would be a good compromise to say we can plan summer school and summer PD for June of 2025 and account for the June 19th holiday, and then make sure that we account for now compensating everybody who's going to work for that. Trying to figure that out right now, it's going to take more planning.
So Michelle, would you be open to that? I mean, I know we messed up this last year and this year, but next year, and from here on out, we make sure that that's the date that we're going to observe.
Of course. Yeah, I would be very much open to that. I think planning ahead is critical.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Shaw, and thank you, Ms. Exton, for bringing that up, because that was going to be my comment, is that I feel that plus the marketing for summer school's already gone out. So there's already, I'm sure parents and families have already signed up for summer school, as Mr. Hernandez alluded to, like calendars and things. So, I mean, I don't have any objection to celebrating Juneteenth when it should be celebrated, but that we can, doing it such a short time, I think is just, does a disservice. And then a parent might just get really upset and say, oh, well, I'm not going to do, this program anyway, and pull their kid out when their child actually would really need the service, right, to go into the new school year. So that would be my concern. But if we can really figure this out for next year, depending on, like the Title I money and all that, and help with your marketing, Mr. Armenta, I think that would be really helpful.
And again, board members, thank you for your perspective and insight. That's one of the things that when we came in March, we did disclose to you all that we'll be bringing people together to talk about this and really plan out summer of 2025. So yeah, that would help me out a lot. I wouldn't have that much stress of trying to figure out how to market this out there. But again, I do believe, as we identified last year, that this is a very important observance in our community, especially how long we've had it in our community. So I will bring that to the table next year to make sure that we take care of that, work with finance, ensure that those individuals are compensated appropriately.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Shaw.
All right. So if you don't mind, can I move the item or do you want to move it?
Feel free.
All right. So I'll move the item to designate the actual day of June 19th being the day we celebrate Juneteenth beginning next year. And also pay the teachers who are teaching the full summer school session to be paid as a paid holiday.
All right.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Dr. Shaw. The provision to change.
Clarification.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Only teachers. We have health assistants, crossing guards. It has to be all staff, and right, bus drivers.
Okay. Staff supporting summer school. Okay. Okay.
Okay. So moved by Dr. Shaw to for
I'll
next
make that
year.
Amendment. Yeah.
You're making an amendment?
Sure.
Okay. To include all staff supporting summer school for next year to make sure that Juneteenth is on Juneteenth, observed on that day. Seconded by Ms. Shaw. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You're good. I just want to thank the board for considering this. Thank staff for bringing it to us once again. As you all know, I'm on the board of the Tucson Juneteenth Festival, and I had the pleasure and privilege of attending it as a child for many years. And so it's great to have it as a paid holiday now in our district and city and county-wide. I do want to encourage the community to attend the Juneteenth Festival. It'll be on that Saturday, June 22nd, at Keno Sports Complex, on the right side where like the soccer fields are. So yeah, just thank you, and yeah, happy Juneteenth early.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The ayes have it. Thank you so much.
So we have
Mr.
the
Armenta.
amendment that's approved. Now we need to approve
Yes.
the whole thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
You and your Robert's rules. Okay. Okay, so we approved Dr. Shaw's amendment, so I approve the original.
Somebody can vote.
That we should, okay, how am I going to?
Yep. Now we can vote on the full motion as amended.
Okay, we vote on the full motion as amended. Does it need to be moved?
It's already been moved, so now we can vote.
Okay, you moved
Yeah.
it, all right. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, now the ayes have it. All right, sorry. The amendments kind of still mess me up, and Mr. Ross will probably send me a note. Okay.
I'm the
Thank you,
Robert
Mr.
Rule nerd
Aronoff.
here.
No, Mr. Ross will send me a note, I'm sure. Okay. Let's move to 8.2, Governing Board Policy, DGA, authorized signatures, new policy, first reading. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Luna Rose, board members, for the next two items, which are first policy reads, I will leave you in the very capable hands of our Associate General Counsel, Mr. Michael Aronoff.
Thank you. Good evening. So this is a first read policy. This would be a new policy we're proposing to add. We've titled it Authorized Signatures. This policy attempts to answer a question that comes up repeatedly, and that we want there to be just full clarity on for people. There are certain things that the governing board, certain agreements that the governing board has to vote to approve. Intergovernmental agreements have to be approved by the governing board. Certain contracts, if we're over a certain amount, that has to be approved by the governing board. If we are adding positions, that's within the governing board authority, has to be approved by the governing board. And so we've tried to clarify in the policy anything, we've laid out, these are the things that always have to be approved by the governing board, but there are numerous agreements that come up in the course of business that definitely don't need to go to the governing board and in fact don't go to the governing board, that can be approved by superintendent, other leadership, or the leadership of the department where that agreement is being implemented. And so we want to lay that out in policy so people have an easy reference to, okay, I have this agreement. It doesn't involve any new hiring. It doesn't involve any great expense. It's, an agreement with the local organization. They're going to come in and they're going to provide some simple service. Can I sign that or not? Does it have to go to the governing board? This clarifies that. At least that's kind of the primary driver of that first big section. The second two sections are smaller. The second section on 2 signatures, that actually, we pulled that in from an ASBA model policy. There are some statutes that for certain things require there to be 2 signatures. ASBA recommended having it in the policy. We figured this sort of fits here. And so we've included that just as an example. Student activity funds, if there are payments made out of student activities funds, those have to have 2 signatures. And then I guess I would draw your attention to that last section of electronic signatures. There is an effort to outline by technology services right now what the parameters of appropriate electronic signatures would look like so that we're meeting security needs. But in the modern world, we have a lot of things that are signed electronically, both internally and externally, and we want the board to sort of set the preliminary authority for that to happen. The plan here would be we would develop regulations that would be, we would update as technology advanced, as needs advanced, along with the guidance of technology services. But this is kind of the first step towards authorizing that practice, which right now is not specifically authorized, and so doesn't, lacks the consistency that we would like it to have for the sake of district security. So that's all that's covered right now in this policy. And as I said, this is a new proposed policy here for a first read. If the board moves it forward tonight, it'll be posted for public comment for 30 days, and we'll bring it back for a second read.
Thank you, Mr. Aronoff. Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Luna Rose. So with the second paragraph in the bullet points, this is a new policy. What happens now?
I'm not sure I understand
the second paragraph in the bullet points, like a contract and who can sign it. Like, do we have like a list, or a policy or anything that designates who can sign things now, or who is authorized to sign things now?
So this is effectively how things happen now.
This is memorializing practice.
Exactly, and we want it to be really crystal clear, both for external sources and internal employees who want to know, am I allowed to sign this thing? We can point and say, these are the parameters. But this is the current practice. So we have people who are authorized to sign.
I have a question, Mr. Aronoff. So you said this is a new policy, so it's not replacing anything. What do we have currently?
We are just silent on it currently.
Okay.
And so we
That would
follow,
make
I
sense.
mean, what that means is we follow statutory parameters and act within that authority, but we wanted to memorialize it so that piece was clear, and also, as I said, to sort of set the stage for the electronic signatures that we hope to develop more practices on.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any other questions? All right, well, this is the first read, so I will move the item.
I'll second.
All right, moved by myself, seconded by Dr. Shaw. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. On to 8.3, Mr. Aronoff.
So 8.3, I'll ask Dr. God to step up and maybe talk a little bit more about this. Just for context, though, this came from a recommendation from the Communicable Disease Task Force. It goes hand in hand with the retirement of a regulation that is GBGCB-R1, which is all about our COVID response, which given where we are now, and Dr. God will touch on this, but I think we're ready to retreat a little bit from having a detailed COVID-specific response and have it based more on this general policy. This also is here for a first read and so would be posted for public comment for 30 days. And Dr. Guy, I don't know if you want to elaborate.
Sure. So on March the 1st of this year, the CDC had made changes to how we respond, treat, and manage COVID. It is now under the umbrella of COVID, flu-like symptoms, and it also involves RSV as well. So we are now treating the COVID response in the same respect as we treat flu and RSV. So with that being said, we believe that that we should follow the guidelines that have been set forth by the CDC, which relaxes a lot of the response requirements, such as the isolation period of 5 days, and basically we're going to be responding in the way that the new guidelines state, of which is if your symptoms have improved and you are without a fever for greater than 24 hours without the assistance of a medication that will reduce fevers, then they can come back to work or school. And then there are some supportive guidelines as well, like masking, which in the state of Arizona we cannot mandate that, but we can ask for that, to socially distance if possible, and also to use effective hygiene practices as well, and also to encourage movement of to engage in ventilation practices as well. So because our policies conflict with that guideline at this point, the task force has suggested that we remove the COVID policy itself and put language in the foundational policy that we would follow the appropriate guidelines.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ka.
By the way, that's also important too, because if it changes again, I don't have to come back and ask you again.
Fair enough. Any questions? Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Luna Rose. I think regardless of what people thought about the COVID response, I think one thing we did well was to follow the public health science and follow the experts. And that's something we did consistently as a district. And this policy memorializes, it's a constantly changing, as you mentioned, Dr. Ga, there's a constantly changing process. Science updates, the infection rates change, and based on infection rates, recommendations change, and it's a constantly moving target. And so to memorialize this in policy, to give our district the flexibility to follow the public health science, where the CDC, the Arizona Department of Health, and our own county Department of Health, all of them have been really sound in following in the science and using best practices here, I think is a sound thing to do in making this policy change as appropriate.
Thank you. I had a question, Dr. Ga. So just for those who are still with us and listening, so I just, and I support this, but in serious outbreaks of disease, so that you're talking about things like whooping cough and those sort of catastrophic type of illnesses outside of COVID. Is that what that refers to?
Yeah, so we've been seeing things that we would typically not see in schools because we are now accepting students from all over the world, right? And so we've had all kinds of various type cases that we may not have seen, but those guidelines are there, right? So what we do is we follow what the CDC suggests, right? The state health department has their appropriate guidelines as well. But Pima County is really in touch with what's happening in Pima County, right? So the idea is that that whatever guidelines are published, that's what we follow, right? And so when we have a outbreak per se, what is defined as an outbreak is different is very different from one disease to another. So, for example, if we had one measles case, that's an issue, right? Whereas if we have a handful of like flu cases, we respond to that differently. But the CDC has them all in the guidelines.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sure.
Board members, any other questions?
I'll move the item.
All right, I will second. It's moved by Dr. Shaw, seconded by myself. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, item passes. Thank you so much, Dr. Goff.
Thank you.
All right. Wow, I think we are coming to the very end. Future meeting dates and agenda items. Dr. Trujillo.
Yeah, so two. So first, future meeting dates for board consideration. In February, we had an initial discussion about potentially moving the May 28th governing board meeting to May 21st. We never had a definitive answer to see if all board members would be amenable to that. So I pose the question to the board now.
Board members, how does May 21st look for you? And why are we moving it again?
I do have some travel, but based off of board feedback, if the calendar is to stay as it is, I do have some time to modify plans.
Okay. I'm good with the 21st.
Line Weaver has their kindergarten carnival, so I may be gone for part of it. I'll be there for most of it.
Okay. Dang, those carnivals. Okay.
Gotta see the kids perform.
Board members, Ms. Shaw, Mr. Romero.
Waiting for my phone to turn on.
Got to look at your calendar. Yeah, you think you're good, Ms. Shaw? Okay. Ms. Ekstrom?
It's just a really busy week.
I know. Okay.
I should be able to make it work.
Okay.
I'll figure it out.
Okay. Well, it is a busy week with graduations and things coming up those following days, correct? Yeah. Okay. Well, it looks like we are all available for the most part on the 21st.
Okay, upcoming agenda items. Just a note to the public, this is budget season, so May 14th will represent the first draft of the desegregation budget. It will be an info item only for governing board discussion as well as our public. May 14th will also return with the second read of the sustainability policy ECF that is currently out on a first read. That will be back on May 14th. At the May 21st governing board meeting, we will have our first draft ready for the district's maintenance and operations budget. Also will be a study item. We want to make sure that our community has every opportunity to make public comment or offer commentary. I will note here that after the draft of the DSEG budget, the first draft is presented as an info item On May 14th, we will be posting it publicly for public comment. Same thing with the maintenance and operations budget draft on the 21st. That will also be posted for public comment.
Okay. Board members, anything else for the good of the order? All right. Thank you very much. And I do believe we're adjourned. Have a good evening.